welcome to this episode of Substance TV. I'm your host Brian, and this week we're going to be taking a look at 3 more great games. First off, we're going to be checking out Wario World for the Nintendo GameCube. Then we're going to take it back a few years and check out Shatterhand for the 8-bit Nintendo. And finally, we're going to look at the newest game in the Outrun franchise, Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. So, as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Substance TV.
Welcome to Wario World!
Up to the bat first is Wario World for the Nintendo GameCube. Game was published by Nintendo, but was actually created by Treasure, the same folks who brought us Gunstar Superheroes in our last review. Well, let's take a look at the game in action. This time around, developer Treasure has ditched the whole side-scrolling platformer for more of a beat-em-up style gameplay. The story of this game goes something like this. Long ago, there was an evil black jewel that fed on the wishes of people, turning their desires into power. This dark jewel gave birth to many evil spirits who then tormented the good creatures of the world. Then oh god, come on, stop, hold on. Okay, let's speed things up here a bit. Much better. Anyway, the gist of the story goes like this. Some evil black jewel has stolen all of Wario's golden treasures and turned them into evil baddies. Wario's got to go out and battle all the evil baddies in order to turn them back into gold and make his life better. Well, let's look at the gameplay of this title. The game starts you out with an overworld sort of view, giving you your choice of the different levels you want to go into. The game does have a few platforming aspects, but all in all, this game is a beat-em-up. While the game's got your standard punches that any beat-em-up's got, it's got some other cool features, like the ability to grab a bad guy, spin him around, and then throw him into other bad guys, causing massive damage. It seems Wario's even taken a page from the WWE with his own version of a spinning pile driver. If wrestling's not your thing, you can just straight up throw the guy. While the game is mainly a beat-em-up, there are a few puzzles thrown in here or there for good measure. The puzzles aren't too hard, so it's a nice little addition. Instead of the classic endless pit of death, if you ever fall down, you go into some weird psychedelic hole that looks like it was picked from the mind of Keith Richards. Bosses in this game are very creative. They range from odd-looking sea monsters to dragon-type monsters, each with their own discernible pattern and way of beating them. Well, what can I say about the graphics? They look phenomenal. The character designs are really well done, and all the enemies and bosses look really awesome. The game definitely takes advantage of the GameCube's graphics processor. Polygons are nice and smooth, and most enemies even have nice reflective textures. The level design is also top-notch in this game. Each level is different from the last and has its own distinct feel and color scheme. The sound in this game is wonderful, with an array of bassy booms and thuds, and a soundtrack that's bright and energetic, with each song fitting each level perfectly. As far as difficulty goes, the game's right in the middle, not too hard and not too easy. The game should also be a cinch for you to find in your local EB Games or GameStop for around 10 to 20 bucks. Although lately Wario has been known for his WarioWare games, this game is just as good or better. So go on, check it out. You'll thank me later, trust me. Hello old friend. Once we ruled the world of gaming. Yes, we ruled it with just 2 buttons and 8 bits. And together, you and I will rule the world of gaming once again! Well, maybe not rule the world, but we can still have a lot of fun playing Shatterhand for the Nintendo Entertainment System. This game was developed by Natsume and published by Nintendo. Hey, let's take a look at the game in action. Shatterhand is a side-scrolling action game. As far as gameplay goes, everything controls really well. Your primary attack in this game is your punch, which can even be used to stop bullets. Talk about Shatterhand. Although your main weapon in this game is your punch, your secondary weapon is what you're going to be using the most. Your secondary character is that robotic familiar above your character. Collecting 3, B, or D icons will summon your robot helper. The type of robot helper depends on the type of icons you pick up. By punching the icon, you can change it from a B to a D, therefore changing the combination. These secondary power-ups are really useful. This secondary attack not only provides backup fire, it also gives you many advantages, like being able to hit enemies from afar or hit enemies that are otherwise out of range. It's really cool to see all the different robot helpers you can get throughout the game, and let me tell you, there are a ton in this game. Now, before I go into the graphics section of this game, let me remind some of the viewers that this is an 8-bit Nintendo game. So to some of you, it's not going to look the greatest. To me, personally, I think it looks really good for an 8-bit Nintendo game. Sprites are really well done, and the animation, surprisingly, is also nice. Add to that the fact that the levels, characters, and enemies in this game are also nicely designed. They all have a certain amount of creativity that you don't see in many games even to this day. Now I will admit, there is the occasional flicker here and there just because of the Nintendo's inability to handle a lot of sprites at once, but that's commonplace in any Nintendo game you're going to play, so I don't fault it too much for that. Well, the music in this game is great. I mean, if you couldn't hear it, then I don't know what to tell you. This is actually one of my favorite soundtracks to any video game of all time. It's on an 8-bit Nintendo, so it doesn't sound the greatest, but for an 8-bit Nintendo game, it does sound really nice and smooth. Also, the hit effects, explosions, and punches are all done very nicely on an old 8-bit Nintendo. As far as difficulty goes, this game is pretty difficult. Although you do have infinite continues, you have to start at the first of each level over again. Don't worry though, with enough practice you should be able to get things down pat. This game is pretty easy to find. I would check your local pawn shop, or if you're lucky enough to have one in your town, your local game exchange. It can be found for around $3. This game is a must-own for any Nintendo collector, and if you don't like old 8-bit Nintendo games, well, go out and try it out. You might be surprised that you actually like it. Shatterhand is an all-time favorite of mine, and I'm sure it'll soon be a new favorite of yours. Last on our plate of gaming goodness is Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. This game is the latest in the Outrun series. The game was developed by Sega and with a little help from Sumo Digital. Well, let's take a look at the game. For those of you that played Outrun 2 on the Xbox a few years ago, you'll be pretty familiar with the gameplay style. For those of you not familiar with the Outrun franchise, let me give you a little bit of a rundown. Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast is a racing game, just as all the Outruns before it have been. Outrun separates itself from realistic racers like Gran Turismo by giving you a more arcade feel to the game. This system allows you to take turns and corners with the greatest of ease, all while avoiding walls and other cars. Basically what I'm trying to say is that this game is arcade racing at its finest. The game has your standard race against other players mode, but it does have a few other extra interesting modes. The other main mode, other than racing, is going to be Heartbreak mode. In this mode you've got a female companion with you, and you basically obey her every wish and command. The better you do at the tasks she requests, the more hearts you get, thereby giving you a better score at the end. Some of these tasks go from the mundane everyday to a little bit strange, to just plain odd, to hitting the... What the heck? I'm hitting ghosts here? What is this? Anyway, the Heartbreaker mode is pretty fun, and it gives you a lot of different tasks to do. Now let's move on to the graphics of this game. Let's just say the graphics in this game are really, really nice. Everything in the game has a nice level of detail to it. Even the Ferraris you're driving look really, really nice. My favorite part about this game is the different levels you drive through. As in all Outruns, as you progress through the game, depending on either going left or right, you go to different levels throughout the game, each with their own feel and distinct level design. While the scenery is nice, you might not get a chance to take a good look at it as you'll be going over 300 miles an hour most of the time, but it's nice to have. The only minor complaint I have about this game is that sometimes when the action gets a little bit crazy on screen, the game tends to slow down. Now, while this isn't a good thing, it only happens every once in a while, so it's a rare occurrence. Alright, now let's move on to the sound in this game. The in-game sound effects are pretty good. Now, keep in mind that this is a racing game, so it's not going to be anything revolutionary, but they do the job really well. Now, let me say something about the music. You're either going to love or hate the music. If you're into that arcade style of music, you're going to really like it. But if you're looking for more of a realistic grunge rock kind of feel, well, you're in the wrong place. That being said, I personally love the soundtrack in this game. The game even gives you an option of listening to the original soundtrack from the original Outrun game all the way back in 1986. It's a perfect soundtrack for an arcade racer. It brings back the memories of old stale popcorn and sticky pop-ridden floors. Ah, those were the days. The difficulty in this game is right in the middle. You will have a few times you crash, but once you get used to the mechanics, it'll be simple. The game might be hard to find at your local game store. I'd recommend going online. You can usually find it for around 30 bucks. I would mention the online mode, but there's no one ever on it. All in all, this game is a great game. It's got a ton of unlockables like different cars, colors, tracks, songs, and a ton of different options that you can mess around with through the whole game. Although there are a few things that need to be unlocked by hooking up a PSP, so if you don't have a PSP version and a PS2 version, well, you're kinda out of luck. If you already own Outrun 2 for the Xbox, sell it and pick up this title. It not only includes Outrun 2, but a lot more options, tracks, and modes. So you know the drill, go pick it up. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Substance TV. This is your host, Brian here. Sorry things are a little bit late. Things have just been kind of crazy this past couple weeks, so it's just been a little late. Next time, I'll be on top of things. If you've got any questions or comments for me, you can always email me at jeddadoma@cox.net. Or hey, leave a comment on the video. Well, that's it for this episode. As far as next episode goes, well, it's going to be a little something special for some of you. Let me give you a little audio clue here. Well, there you have it. For those of you that know what it is, well, tune in next episode. If you don't know what that sound is, well, tune in next episode to find out. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, game on.